It's going to be a jump. Now here it looked like a jump. There, this looks like a foul to me.
Yeah.
Indiana, and you can see Caitlin saying you were right in front of her.
Like, I'm not saying that your job is easy, but when it is a simple call right in front of your face multiple times, what are you doing? What are you doing?
What call are you, like, bugged out?
All of them.
Most, everything?
Like, it's just like they're just so inconsistent. Like, that's my thing. Like, if you're on the other team and you're going to be fouling the shit out of me,
yeah,
cool. But let me do it to you.
Let you, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You want
like,
consistency then.
Yeah, like just give. And I think that's players across the league and like new fans across the country. Like everyone's like, what is going on with the refs? And I'm like, I don't know.
Am I ever advocating for players to throw other players on the ground? No, like we've seen so much of it throughout the WNBA. He watches this happen right in front of him. There's so much contact on the play and he does nothing. He doesn't blow his whistle. He doesn't stop the play. He doesn't.
We have updates and our recovery's going well. You know, it's just, I think for us staying the course and making sure that we're really diligent about each step that we take and that we don't have setbacks and that we're patient with it. I know she wants to be out here on the floor and we want her out here on the floor, but making sure that she's ready is the most important thing. You know, I still don't know how far we are. We're going to take it one step at a time, one day at a time. And
I don't even know what the players can do because the players aren't being protected. And I know so many of the times, like, we're talking about this when it comes to the Indiana Fever, but this does happen across the league. There are many plays that we could pull up. Do you guys have any suggestions on what can actually be done? The coaches get fined when they call them out to the media. Like, this is a top-down issue. This is a commissioner's.
This year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair and they're going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do what the higher ups say.
And I got scratches on my face, I got scratches on my body, and these guards on the other team get these ticky-tack fouls, and I'm sick of it. I get fouled like that every possession. But King gets fouled like that in the post all the time, and they don't call it, and I don't know what else to do. Like, it's really frustrating though. I'm like, I feel, I mean, there's multiple shots at the end of the game, either go into the third, into the fourth, where they're just coming and swinging, and they just...
A player hits the floor, the whistle stays silent. From the bench, Caitlin Clark snaps, "You were right in front of her." The sound cuts through the arena like a siren. Fans roar, players stare at the nearest stripe, and a routine rebound turns into a referendum on fairness. That moment should have been small. It became the whole night. What happened next was not about one missed call. It was about trust in the people holding the whistles and what it costs when that trust slips. Indiana still had to finish possessions, quiet a crowd, and survive a dangerous fourth quarter. Seattle still had plenty of answers ready. The scoreboard kept ticking. The tension did not. This story is not a rant. It is a clear look at how one sequence exposed a bigger problem, how a shorthanded team handled it, and what the league must do to keep the game honest. If the sport wants the bright lights, it needs a standard that can stand heat. Eyes are on the court, ears are on the whistle. Tonight showed why both matter. But the spark did not arrive at the end. It showed up at the start, and it felt impossible to ignore. It began with a simple read, a defensive board, a pivot into daylight, a body that never truly set. Shoulder to chest, hip to thigh, and the ball handler went down hard. The nearest official had the angle. The hand stayed at the side. The first beat was confusion. The second was disbelief. By the third beat, the building was screaming. You could feel the mood change, as if someone had twisted a dial. Players held their palms up, then dropped them and sprinted back. Eyes darted to the bench, as if to confirm what everyone had just witnessed. Caitlin did not swallow it. Her voice cut through the din, not just calling for a whistle, but calling out the proximity. The complaint was not theatrical, it was literal. The official was close enough to see it clean. That proximity made the silence feel heavier. Why does a single miss matter so much? Because it changes more than a possession. It shifts tempo. It flips matchups. It opens a lane or closes one. In a tight game, each of those swings is worth a small stack of points you never see on a box score. There is also the human part. Players are not robots. When they feel ignored, their shoulders tense. When they fear landing space is not protected, they hesitate on closeouts or pull up early on drives. That split second shows up as a bad pass or a fumbled catch. No headline blames the call, but the ripple is real. The bench's energy changed too. Assistants stood longer. Sub patterns tightened. You could feel every possession acquiring extra weight. The message on the sideline was simple: control what you can. Keep your feet, show your hands, win the glass. Do the work the whistle cannot take away. The crowd understood the stakes. Every bump that followed drew a louder reaction. Every hand check felt like a test. Officials felt it as well. When a crew loses the benefit of the doubt, even correct calls spark jeers. That is a bad environment for everyone. And yet, the game had to be played. Indiana could not live in the past, not for a quarter, not for a minute. The players reset their jaws, huddled around the inbounder, and told themselves the choice that separates pros from noise. Play through it, or let the night slip. The miss may have started the conversation. It did not finish it. What came next was bigger, and it stretched beyond one gym. The larger question had been simmering all season. Fans love flow. Players love rhythm. Coaches want both as long as the boundaries are clear. The trouble begins when freedom without definition becomes license. That is where a sport starts to lose the plot. The idea of letting contact go has an appeal. It keeps the game moving. It builds a sense of toughness that fans respect. But letting certain hits slide while whistling brush touches on the arc is not toughness. It is noise. Nothing erodes confidence faster than a moving target. The cue is not just in the calls you see, but in the calls you feel. A driver lands and looks for space that never arrived. A cutter gets held for 2 steps and watches the play develop without him. A big fights for position and never learns what counts as vertical. The game devolves into a negotiation. Nobody knows the price. Players know how to speak without saying it. They tighten their answers in the post-game scrum. They choose careful words and colder tones. They nod when asked about physicality, then look down at the stat sheet a little too long. You can hear the fatigue and how slowly they pack their bag. The teams feel it too. Practices tilt toward rebounding combat because that is where whistles vanish. Coaches trim playbooks to emphasize early actions, fearing late clock chaos. Role players receive new rules. Set a screen and hold at your own risk. Defend at the level but pull back before the wrist gets slapped. The conversation online does not help, but it explains the mood. Clips stack up, context gets stripped, and everybody becomes an expert. Fans yell about home cooking, or star treatment, or anti-star treatment. The narrative gets hotter than the game. When conspiracy theories feel plausible, credibility is already leaking. What suffers is not just style, it is safety. Landing space for shooters should be sacred. Blindside bumps should not be shrugged off because the defender reached for the ball late. A player who falls hard should not be told to stand up faster for the sake of tempo. Nobody came to watch injuries pile up. The league has to decide what it wants the sport to look like. If the brand is skill, protect the room where skill lives. If the brand is collisions, announce it and accept the cost. What the game cannot be is both at once. Split identities always break under pressure. This night was a microcosm. The early no call, the rolling frustration, the crowd heat, the short fuse on both benches. It looked like only a local storm. It felt like a national forecast. And through all of it, Indiana still needed to craft a win without its centerpiece. 7 games without the star is not a blip. It is a stretch that rewires a team. The Fever arrived in Seattle with a simple task that was not simple at all. Keep the streak alive. Win a tough road game. Do it without the gravitational player who bends every defensive plan. Without Caitlin, possessions look different. The early pull-up threes are gone. The pacing cools. The set menu gets longer. Guards share the handle instead of orbiting one focal point. The first action is often a decoy. The second or third is where the advantage lives. Sophie Cunningham became the release valve and then the engine. 17 points mattered, but how she got them mattered more. She ran the lane to the corner, dared defenders to help one pass too far, and punished every half-second late closeout. 4 of 5 from deep is not volume, it is precision. It tells the defense that no rotation is safe. Indiana did not ask Sophie to be a star. They asked her to be sharp. Sprint into space. Hunt the open foot. Commit to the extra pass until the extra pass is a mistake. Make the shot that resets the heartbeat. On a night like this, those are hero tasks in plain clothes. Credit also belongs to the quiet jobs. The bigs fought for early seals that forced Seattle to sink. Those half-post catches dragged the weak side in and created the space wings need to breathe. The guards turned down average looks to find better ones. Offensive rebounds came not from size alone, but from reading the flight and stepping into the gap before someone boxed out a ghost. Defense kept them afloat when the offense stuttered. Closeouts stayed disciplined. Hands stayed high. Indy switched only when it made sense, then fought to get back to base so the next roll man did not dive unchecked. It is not glamorous. It wins more often than it loses. Every make felt like 2. Every stop felt like 3. That is life when a superstar sits. The margin is paper thin, and every detail becomes a hinge. The sideline kept the talk simple. Keep your stance, be early to help. Communicate on cross matches. Protect the glass like the season depends on it. The final box will show points and rebounds. It will not show how the ball found Sophie after the initial action failed, or how a timely flare screen gave her a clean window, or how a decoy cut pulled a defender 2 steps out of position. Those are the small wins that create the big ones. Indiana did not win by being someone else. They won by being themselves, with sharper edges. That is how you survive when gravity sits. That is how you tell a league you are not a one-trick act. The message landed. The finish, however, tried to steal it back. Late leads can be a mirage. You think you are safe because the math says so. Then the floor tilts and you learn how fragile a cushion can be. That is what happened here. Under 2 minutes, 2 possession edge and possession in hand. Seattle ramped pressure without gambling. 1 deflection forced a reset. 1 deny blew up the first option. Indiana flowed into Plan B, then Plan C, then into a late clock heave that never had a chance. The gym woke up. The most dangerous possession of the night came next. Seattle missed, then crashed so hard the ball bounced like it belonged to them. 1 kick out, 3 rimmed out. Another missed short. A third clanged long. The 4th clean look spun halfway down and came back up. In those seconds, you could feel everyone's heart rates sinking. This is where execution habits save you. Indiana struggled to hit bodies on the first rebound, then adjusted on the fly. On the next miss, they committed 2 players to the ball and trusted the guard to find the release valve. The pass was simple, but it broke the press and burned seconds the Storm could not afford. The other end asked for courage, not the kind that forces a hero shot, the kind that works the ball through hands until someone gets a balanced look. Indiana nearly betrayed itself with a rushed entry and a soft screen, but the second screen connected, the pop was clean, and the basket bought oxygen. Timeouts became chess. Seattle sought the mismatch, ran a curl designed to draw help, and kick back to the wing with the hot hand. Indiana pre-switched to deny the curl, then stunted at the drive without fully committing. The shot was open enough to tie. It hit iron and died. The rebound went red. The clock bled out. When teams debrief games like this, they rarely blame fate. They study footwork on box outs. They review the spacing that led to a late clock trap. They memorize the inbound series they want when the crowd is howling. Those details decide spring, not just winter nights far from home. Indiana escaped. That is the word. Escaped. But escape can be a teacher if you are honest about it. Protect the defensive glass with bodies, not wishes. Be decisive on late clock sets. Trust the pass that unlocks a simple shot instead of chasing a highlight. Those are habits you carry into the next close game. The win went into the books. The wobble did too. And what that win changed did not end with the handshake line. It reached into the standings and the psyche. Road wins against good teams are more than vibes. They move the table. They shape tiebreakers that decide seeds when records tighten in August. This one tilted a head-to-head in Indiana's favor and put pressure on a rival that expected to protect its floor. In a crowded middle, the difference between a 5 seed and an 8 can be a single result, or a single series split. Owning the matchup with Seattle matters for math and for message. It says the Fever can travel and take what they need, even without their face of the franchise. The streak matters in another way. 5 straight sounds like a marketing line until you account for travel miles, short rest, and the churn of scouting reports. Without Caitlin, opponents sent traps from new angles and dared others to beat them. Indiana met those dares often enough to build a little breathing room. Confidence might be the most underrated currency in the league. Win tight games and your endgame playbook grows. Players know which sets feel natural when the heart is pounding. Coaches learn which combinations can switch and still rebound. That specificity shows up as poise that cameras cannot quite capture, but fans can feel. Roles got sharper. Sophie's green light is now scheduled, not spontaneous. The bigs understand when to duck in early, when to set the ghost screen, and when to dive hard to pull help off shooters. Guards know which defenders they can pry open with a single hesitation. That clarity is worth points because it removes doubt. Opponents now have 2 Indiana teams to prepare for. The version with Caitlin stretches the floor and forces rotation sooner. The version without her runs more layered sets, looks for length on the baseline, and trusts the collective to create advantages. 2 scouting reports are a headache nobody wants in a playoff race. There is also the subtle shift in how Indiana talks about itself. This group no longer frames wins as survival until the star returns. It frames wins as proof of concept. That matters in film rooms. It matters in huddles. A team that believes in its structure gets better at the boring tasks that make big nights possible. The table moved, even if by inches. Inches stack up. So do lessons, which is why one question kept hovering over the entire night, even as the celebration poured into the tunnel. When does Caitlin come back? And how does everything change when she does? A right groin is an unforgiving opponent. It asks for patience when the schedule begs for speed. 7 missed games is long enough to feel like a season inside the season. Every pregame, cameras search for signs. Shoes laced, light jogging, a quiet word with a trainer, then the verdict arrives. Not tonight. Coaches choose caution here for a reason. Groin issues punish impatience. The wrong step can reset the clock by weeks. A smart staff treats each day as data. How does she feel on accelerations? How does she decelerate out of a Euro step? How does the body react the morning after controlled contact? The answers are boring. The answers are everything. Teammates have learned to live in 2 worlds at once. One where the star's gravity shapes every possession. One where the ball has to create its own gravity by moving until a closeout cracks. Indiana used this stretch to practice the second world. When the first world returns, the best parts of the second should stay. Reintegration does not have to be dramatic. Minutes can ramp in steps. Sets can be simplified for the first week. Early actions can put her in space where decisions are binary. Shoot if feet are set. Drive if the lane is clean. Kick if help arrives. No need to force a logo 3 on night 1. Rhythm is a better governor than adrenaline. There is a mental layer too. Sitting while your team fights is hard for any competitor, and Caitlin is wired to compete. The bench outburst was not a tantrum. It was a release valve for a player who knows what contact looks like and who knows how thin margins are for a team missing its focal point. That emotion is part of why fans connect with her. The optics around officiating get harsher when the biggest draw is not on the floor. Every rough hit on a teammate feels like a preventable risk. Every missed landing space looks like a dare. The staff's job is to keep the group inside its lane, control the defensive fundamentals, win the possession war, leave the rest to the people with whistles and cameras. When Caitlin returns, Indiana should resist the instinct to turn back the clock, keep the new wrinkles, keep the trust that grew in her absence. Let her amplify what already works instead of replacing it. That approach keeps Sophie dangerous, preserves the Big's touches, and keeps defenses guessing about where the advantage will be created. The ceiling rises when she is healthy. Everyone knows that. But the floor is built by habits that do not depend on one person. This stretch proved those habits exist. The next stretch will prove whether they can live alongside star gravity. There is one more layer the league needs to address if it wants this return to feel like a celebration rather than a negotiation. It lives where the officiating crew meets the players in midair. Start with clarity. Define illegal contact in plain language that players and fans can read in under a minute. Feet under a shooter are a foul. Blindside bumps that dislodge a ball handler are a foul. Holds that prevent a cut are a foul. The sport is beautiful when everyone knows the rules and expects them to be enforced. Use the cameras you already have. If a crew chief clearly misses a dangerous hit while screened by bodies, allow a fast trigger from the table. 30 seconds to buzz the floor, 30 seconds to confirm or move on. The game does not need long courtroom breaks. It needs quick corrections that protect athletes and the product. Give each team a single quick challenge, then make the stakes simple. Win it and keep it. Lose it and it is gone. This creates a self-policing effect. Coaches will only use the challenge when sure. The crowd can handle the pause because the math is clean. Publish weekly points of emphasis that are actually short. 1 page. 3 clips per point. No jargon. Post them where anyone can see them. When fans and players hear the same language the crews hear, trust grows even when calls go against their team. Sunlight makes standards easier to accept. Clean up crew mechanics on the glass. Put extra eyes on the weak side when the ball goes up. Assign rebound responsibility on rotations so bodies are tracked and pushes do not get lost in the scrum. Many dangerous hits happen in those 2 seconds after a shot leaves a hand. An adjusted stance and earlier rotations prevent them. Communicate better on the floor. When a referee explains a call succinctly and with confidence, tempers cool. When they ignore questions, tempers flare. A few words can prevent technicals and keep focus where it belongs. This is game management, not public relations. Add calm accountability without public shaming. A short weekly note to teams that outlines trends, clarifies a few close plays, and acknowledges standards that need tightening. Reward crews that model consistency by scheduling them for marquee matchups. Quiet, steady incentives change behavior faster than loud fines. Protect stars without turning the game into celebrity court. The right answer is not special whistles. The right answer is consistent whistles that give skilled players room to do what they do. When fans see the same action called the same way in 2 different buildings, the noise drops by half. Do these things and the game breathes. Players worry less about landing space and more about footwork. Coaches spend less time auditing contact and more time building sets. Fans argue about tactics instead of conspiracies. Once the floor is safer and the lines are clear, only one thing will matter again: the basketball. One missed whistle became a mirror. It showed how thin the distance is between clean competition and unnecessary risk. It showed how fast trust can fracture when a crew loses the room. It showed how a shorthanded group can still deliver a road win if it owns the small jobs that never make headlines. Indiana left Seattle with a streak intact and a head-to-head advantage that might matter in September. Sophie's shot-making turned pressure into points. The defense held long enough to escape a barrage of late threes. The film will feature box-outs and inbound counters more than highlights. That is how grown teams win. The tension did not vanish with the buzzer. Trust in the standard is the league's real currency. Players need to know what earns a whistle and what does not. Fans need to feel outcomes are earned, not assigned. When the product is clarity, the conversation turns to skill. When the product is confusion, the conversation turns to blame. Caitlin's return will lift the ceiling. The work done in her absence raised the floor. Keep both truths close. Keep the ball moving. Keep rolls sharp. Let star gravity amplify what already works. That is how you build something that lasts longer than one news cycle. Most of all, fix the whistle. Not with speeches, with actions. Clear definitions, quick reviews, simple challenges, short public notes that match what crews call in real time. Choose consistency over chaos. Choose safety over shrugs. Choose a sport where the best players decide games and the officials are so steady you barely notice them. The crowd already showed up. The athletes already delivered. Now the standard has to meet the moment. If tonight was a warning, it was also an invitation. Get the details right, and the game will sing.